Hello and a very warm welcome to yet another episode of We Talk Talent Series, Season 2. We Talk Talent Series is a special initiative by the Economic Times HR World through which we interview senior HR leaders from industry about everything related to the talent, be it talent management, changing its landscape of hiring strategies, employee engagement, and various other aspects of human resource management. Today with us, we have Mr. Srikanth Vachaspati, General Manager and Head People and Organization, Siemens Technology and Services. Welcome, Srikanth.
Very glad to be a part of this series, Priya, and hello, everyone.
With over 30 years of experience, Srikanth has held several key roles within human resource at Wipro, Infosys, HP, IBM. He currently heads the people and organization function at Siemens Technology and Services in India with an employee strength of about 8,500, who works on research, product and development, engineering and IT services, as well as business services to Siemens and its customers globally. A well-accomplished HR leader with an extensive experience across geographies, having held various roles in Asia Pacific and Europe region. His experience spanned several HR function areas like talent acquisition, compensation, merger and acquisitions, HR consulting, besides being an HR partner to business. Along with expertise in cultural transitions and policy design, he also has a history of startup operations while being catalyst to change. With a BSc Zoology graduate from Royal College, Chennai, and a master's degree in HR from the Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai, Srikanth is an adept at leading HR operations and deriving major transformation while also influencing growth. So with that, I would like to shoot in my first question. Since there has been a lot of disruption and transformation taking place in the industry, be it due to pandemic or the technology sudden disruption we have all been noticing. So what's your take on it? If you can share a brief overview of the disruption and transformation in your industry.
We come from the IT and services industry, product management. If you really look at it, one thing that the pandemic has done in the last couple of years has accelerated digital enhancement or adoption by the industry. So what it means is the increase in terms of jobs which are enabled, Industry 4.0 as we call it, which is use of technology like IoT, IoT, and a lot of virtual work, working with edge technologies. A lot of these disruptive technologies have also entered the landscape, not just from our perspective, because we've been pushing it for some time, but client adoption of these technologies has also really grown up in the last couple of years. So in one sense, what had happened was clients who did not think that something like this would actually work for them were forced into it during the pandemic because there was no other way of working. It increased our focus on these disruptive technologies. From an employee perspective, it also meant that because the scope of absorption of these technologies by industry just exponentially increased, our focus on how do we manage upskilling of people and reskilling of people in these new technologies had to undergo a sudden impact. Combine that with hybrid work, because we had to do all of this when employees were remote. The reskilling of people is not as easy as it seems, because for many of these technologies, Priya, there's an amount of unlearning to be done for them to learn these new technologies. So it's not like you pick up a new adjacent skill, right? You have to rethink the way that your brain works, and you have to retool that to be able to work on these new technologies. I think that is a transformation that organizations have done. How to become more agile, how to be more resilient during these times, and how to use technology as not just from as an enabler, but as some aspect of strategic importance. I think that has changed. And I think underlying the whole stuff has been that the fear of the customer resistance to change has come down drastically. I think these factors combined together has shown us a completely new world of opportunities in the last 2 years, especially from the IT and ITES segment.
Yeah, actually, a lot of it has changed over the last couple of days that we are noticing, and it has also led to a different expectations when it comes to hiring people. So
Yes.
on that note, I will put my second question. So what kind of skill do you look forward while hiring across functions? Is
Yeah.
it technical skill, soft skill, behavior skill, or a combination of both?
I think obviously it's a combination of various aspects, but from a soft skill perspective and a behavioral perspective, some new areas that we did not look into before have actually come onto the forefront. For example, technical skills were always required, but now the demand in the market today, especially in technical skills, is 8 times the supply, according to a recent NASSCOM data. Now, when you have so many people going after a particular skill set, there's no choice but to expand your funnel. So to expand your funnel, you need to start looking at adjacent skills and the ability to learn. This is something that in the IT industry, our leaders have been very reluctant to do. They want 100% fit. But now if you were looking at adjacent skills, and then the ability to learn becomes important, because as I mentioned earlier, reskilling is a huge task. So learnability becomes a very, very important skill that people have. Other than that, you also need other aspects. Today at Siemens, when we look at senior people, other than technical skills, we also look at a couple of other aspects. The soft skills and the behavioral skills essentially is like, how are they able to communicate in a virtual world, right? Because hybrid is here to stay. So you need to be able to communicate well in a hybrid world. So virtual collaboration is another very important aspect that we look at. How about endurance? How about agility? Because things are changing fast, and people need to be able to adapt to these changes, which are happening pretty rapidly. So we're also looking at strategic solutioning. Is that a skill set that people are the business acumen, and a couple of other aspects which we did not pay attention to before, like mental endurance, has become a very, very important skill set. Because people, when you are in office and when you are meeting other people, there's an energy that comes off by meeting other people. When you're looking only at a screen and working, you need to have a lot of mental endurance to be able to live and thrive in that environment. Of course, it's got its other pluses from people's point of view. It gives them more flexibility, but learnability and learning of other people, not just the formal learning. There are a couple of aspects which are missing, and you need to find different ways to cope with that. So obviously, we are looking at a couple of these aspects, along with the ability to coach, which is also becoming very important for leaders. Because in a hybrid environment, how do you actively coach other people and bring them on board is important. So yes, while it's a combination of various skills, some of the skill sets that we did not look at earlier is also come on to our ask of repository of skills.
Yeah, pandemic has definitely opened a new pathway of demands from both the sides of employees and organization as well. And on that front, we have also seen a flourishing gig economy in India, with the flexibility, demand in hybrid work culture and all. So I would like to take your opinion on gig economy, and how mature do you think organizations in India are to capitalize on the gig economy?
See, gig has always existed in different forms. Only we didn't call it gig earlier. We always had a lot of headcount that organizations used to have through third-party resources, and most of them were contracted by the third party as gig rather than as full employment. this pandemic has brought into forefront a lot of these skills, and organizations like Ola's, the Ubers, the Airbnb, all of them suddenly have brought in these independent workers into the forefront. Today, I think a lot of tools also exist, or platforms exist for people to get these kind of roles and for organizations to give out these kind of roles. While the gig economy from a growth perspective is going extremely high in India, it's still highly unregulated. While it gives a lot of freedom for people to choose the different kind of roles, I think from a maturity perspective, I think that's what your question is, how mature are we? Not yet, not from a technical point of view. Is it somewhere that we would like to go? Yes. But today, I think most of the roles that are being given out in India, especially, are not the core skills or the core roles, because organizations want to keep that IP. But these are peripheral roles. For example, if there is a very highly skilled single piece of work that can be done by someone instead of hiring somebody, it would go to a gig worker. Translation work, for example, goes to through the gig economy. There are certain roles like maybe app development for a particular requirement goes through a gig economy. So there are specific roles that we are experimenting with and are finding traction. We still are not comfortable with a couple of aspects. I mean, if you take the IT industry in India, a majority of us are still on the T&M basis, right? When you're on T&M basis and you hire a person on a gig scale, you are basically taking the services, adding a markup, and then giving it to your end customer. And your end customer, when they come to know that they're paying you a markup for no real reason at all, if the work is modularized, they might as well go directly to those people. When it happens with, let's say, an urban company, that's what we also see in our regular economy. You hire somebody for cleaning your chimney, for example. The next person, that person gives you the card and says, next time don't call urban company, call me direct. Because I will give you a commission. I mean, I don't have to pay them. You don't have to pay them. It's cheaper for both of us to operate that way. So when that is the challenge that we currently have, right? When we don't have a clear boundary on how we operate, the ethics are in this industry are still a little nascent. They are yet to be formed. And so while all of us would like to go there, it is some more time for us to go in for core jobs. For peripheral jobs, yes, a lot of these gig workers are being used.
Perfectly rightly pointed out there, Srikanth. So with that, I will move to my next question. What is your employee engagement strategy and how has it changed post-pandemic? Since there has been a lot of hybrid working culture and there is that lost sense of belonging when we used to go to the offices and we have to have our chai time and different cafeteria timings. That has a missing aspect in the hybrid work culture.
Yeah. See, I think employee engagement during this time, I think during the pandemic, the thing that came forefront was employee wellness, whether it was the physical wellness for employees, because a lot of people were getting infected with COVID and how we responded to that kind of situation, and the mental health because of loneliness, people getting isolated, not being able to travel out, especially during lockdowns. We felt that we had to actually push in a lot of engagement just to keep people mentally agile and active. So I think a huge amount of focus during engagement activities during the pandemic went on to creating different kind of wellness platforms for people, being able to support them through the illnesses or the family's illnesses. And of course, trying to rejig all our internal policies on medical insurance, how we go beyond that to provide support. And in case of unfortunate deaths that have happened of our colleagues, how to ensure that their family gets the support. I think a lot of the aspects initially started off towards that. But I think, and then of course, the effort towards vaccination to ensure that people get access to vaccine and how do we do the vaccination. But once that particular aspect was over, we had to move on to a hybrid work culture itself as an engagement, and how do we manage remote teams and teams which are scattered. We did a kind of survey to figure out where people were, and we found out that people had scattered across to over 600 different locations. So providing IT support for them in case something went wrong, because everyone was at very different places. So we had to work towards connectivity. We had to work towards giving IT support. And we had to also work towards how do we ensure that people meet virtually. So we had no agenda meetings, essentially for engagement, for talking about how are you doing today, what's happened, let's talk about yourself. There's no work agenda. We also started to push in a culture of saying, don't expect the other person to respond to your email. So we started putting an email signature which says, while it suits me to send the email now, I don't expect you to respond. So people, because we found out people were actually working till 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night because they had nothing else to do. So we had to tell them to get off the system and actually try and talk, be with their families, do something, even if it's virtual, don't really sit in front of the computer and do work. So I think engagement took another turn. At Siemens, globally, we also came up with a couple of different policies. We removed ratings at this time, which was a huge relief for people. But we converted that into what we call growth talks, where we expected managers to go and talk to their employees about their growth and what we need to do to enable them to grow. A lot of our programs, our projects in terms of learning got converted digitally. And we also encouraged people to convert their own learning into a course, which can then go on to a learning platform so others can learn from your experience. So people started curating their own learning, and that went on to a learning platform. So people were training, they were teaching, they were coaching, and they were learning. So close to 90% of our programs were converted to digital. And we saw a huge number of employees learn digitally, much more than what we had seen earlier. So I think we looked at various aspects: growth, employee engagement in terms of their career. We looked at their wellness, and we also changed some of our reward criteria, where instead of country specific, I could go and reward somebody in a different country also. So that way we revolutionized our reward platform. A lot of this went towards building employee engagement in the last 1 to 2 years.
That are some great initiative, especially that you make a course from your own learnings for others to learn from that. That I think so is very innovative and great way of engagement.
Yeah.
So also the new strategies of engagement requires new tools and technologies. So with that, I will come to my next question. How important are the new age technologies such as data science and machine learning for HR? And can we say it aids HR to play a bigger role in business?
This has been a part of HR journey for the past couple of years. And I think use of data to do predictive analytics has always been something that we have attempted to do in HR. And it's not just new. I think for the last 4 to 5 years, we've been looking at not just being data providers, but use data for as an analytics for helping us make decisions. But I think what has happened with AI and ML and data science is that it has accelerated this particular process by giving us enough tools to be able to do this. Today, which is one. The other aspect about this is being able to connect data and make inferences. I think that is one of the bigger, help that data science has given from a HR perspective. So today, you're not just looking at data from one particular angle or one aspect. You're able to get multitude of feedback from various tools, and you're able to take that together and do a lot of analytics and decision making based on those analytics. Let me give you an example on that. Today, when we hire people, and we talked about hiring people who are about 60% ready, with an ability to learn rather than having someone. So when you're hiring people, if I'm as a hiring manager, I'm hiring someone like that, even before the person joins, I can assign courses from my global learning tool to them, saying that these are the areas where I found you wanting. And so these are the 4 areas that I want you to complete as a training in the first 6 months of after joining. So I'm able to connect one piece of data to a system and then ensure that the person has learned that. Once the person has learned these new skills, that is linked to my competency system. So in my competency map, I know what are the different kinds of competencies a person has, and that can be used to allocate jobs or roles to that person. So when we do interlinking of systems, and I also look at it from a sentiment analysis. So we have a lot of AI tools and chatbots which can gauge sentiment on a daily basis. It asks you the questions because it's a chatbot. It analyzes, it takes your answer, puts in the adjacent data, and gives the manager an early indication of how the person is feeling. So we are able to use that to ascertain if people are burning out, if there's too much work for some people, if work is getting allocated equally amongst team members. If a team manager has got too many people reporting to that person, how do we manage certain aspects? We are able to analyze even things using Microsoft Viva, which does talent analytics on your Office 365 to give us data about people who are showing delayed responses, people who have too many meetings at the same time, so it gives us a lot of data about behavior. And we put that all together, we are able to make very, very meaningful decisions on how to implement certain aspects. So definitely, I think they have a huge ability to impact. Now, these things are being used today in sometimes in a disjointed fashion, but we have the ability to combine that together and make a meaningful impact on the way HR is done. The other thing that will happen on this is that the more we use these chatbots, a lot of operational work, repetitive work can be taken care of, and we can actually move on to the ones that make a higher impact. So yes, to answer your question, Priya, this has a huge potential. AI and ML in HR has huge potential, and when used, will be able to make a meaningful impact, not only from an employee perspective, from an organization perspective, by doing a lot of predictive analytics and also influencing decision making and helping business manage the entire, and ultimately at the end of the day, it's all about people in our industry. So if you're able to manage that particular aspect by providing these data points, definitely I think it will have a much exponential impact on the way HR works with business.
Thank you, Srikanth. Very relevant point made there. And thank you so much for today's insightful conversation with us. I think audiences have taken down all the important key takeaways that they can use for their organization and their work for getting a better result. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Priya. Thank you so much for the opportunity.